Hello and welcome to the Itch and Bitch podcast. I'm Katie, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Penny from Westlab. For those who don't know, Itch and Bitch is all about normalising normal skin and starting those conversations we often shy away from as itchy people. I hope that today's little recording helps you feel a little bit more heard and a little bit more understood and a little bit more normal. And before it starts, I thought I'd just say that it was an Instagram live that I thought was so good and insightful and just natural that I wanted to put on the podcast. So I really do hope you enjoy it and, take something away today. Have a lovely bank holiday.
Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just trying to get my camera right in the position. Here we go.
I'm loving the new this morning hair.
I know.
How did you manage that one?
Honestly, I follow this Instagram page called Ugly Models, which they're all about normalizing the normal and things that you'd consider ugly, they're trying to show as beautiful. So it really aligned with me. I think I'd seen one of their campaigns and I've been following them ever since. And they posted like a casting call, which they regularly do. And it was just kind of like one of those universe moments where I was like, you know what, I'm ready to cut my hair off. And then I go on Instagram and I see a casting call for person with long hair to get hair cut into bob on live TV. And I was like,
Oh my
I was just sitting there like, I've got long hair. I want to cut it into a bob. So I was like, it was one of those moments you're like, okay, I'm gonna apply to it and see what happens. Never really ever thought I would get it. And then next thing I know, they replied to me within 5 minutes, and that was on the Monday. And then on the Wednesday, I was on live TV and I was getting my hair cut off.
No,
So
oh
yeah,
my gosh, that quickly.
yeah, it was crazy. It's just such a quick turnaround. But I also, when I did put the message in, I was like, I've previously had alopecia, and it's really cool to me that if I cut this amount of hair off, my deal breaker kind of thing is you have to literally make it cut in a way that I can donate it to the Little Princess Trust. And they were like, yeah, we'll see if we can do that. And then they're like, yeah, all good, we'll do it. And I was like, great, I'm here, I'm ready.
Oh, amazing, amazing. I didn't even know that you'd donated. I just saw the bits about you having it cut off. That's fantastic that you're able to do that too.
Yeah, and it's the second time I've actually donated it as well. So I actually think I'm a freak and my hair must just grow really intensely quickly, because in the last 3 years I've donated 60 centimeters of hair. 60.
What?
I know. Oh my
60
God,
centimeters?
I've actually got the hair. I could go and get it because I'm actually posting it tomorrow because of the bank holiday weekend. I haven't posted it. And I was just holding the 30 centimeters that got cut this time. And I was like, oh my God, like when you look at it, like I was showing my gran last night on FaceTime, and she's like, wow. And my gran is so happy. She's already like, hey, can I get you in for another trim? Can we get it regularly? She's always wanted me to have short hair. So she's living her dream as well.
It really suits you.
Oh, thank you.
It really suits you.
Yeah, it's
It's
so
lovely.
weird. It's
It's
so weird
really
to go from such a
healthy.
drastic difference, because for people who haven't followed me previously, my hair before this was literally down here. I got like total cut off was like 30, like 40 centimeters, but once you've got rid of all the bits that can't be donated, it's around 30, which is a lot. I'm just like, wow.
Wow, that's gorgeous hair as well. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's
very
so,
good to
so
donate.
thick.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Well, I'm thinking for people who, I mean, most people who follow us probably know who you are and all of that sort of stuff. But for the few who don't, could you just give us a bit of a background to your story and what made you start Itch and Bitch, and just give us that overview? That'd be great.
Okay, so my name's Katie Mackey, and my is Mackey's Moments. So a lot of the time people are like Mackey, and I'm like, no, Katie. But I had suffered alopecia from 2017 to 2019, and from that I kind of started posting online, because I'd had eczema since birth as well, but because I had it since birth, I never really thought it was anything to talk about, and I'd had it in varying degrees throughout my life. And when I kind of had the alopecia experience, I kind of came online and I discovered a community of people who also had visual differences like me. So, and a lot of people who had alopecia would also have like asthma and eczema. And I was just like, oh my God, people are actually talking about things that I've been hiding my whole life. Because at that point I was 20 years old. I'd had eczema and alopecia for the last like few months, but eczema since birth. And from kind of finding that community, I then discovered loads of different skincare communities and people. And I was hiding on an account that was like a private account, and that's when I kind of started sharing my story. And then from that, I ended up being a brand ambassador for Barman's, because I kind of started going down the natural route of healing and realizing that the natural route and products around me really could make a difference in comparison to going to the doctors all the time and not really knowing my skin. So learning my skin, I was able to find what did and didn't work for me, and also triggers. And then from that, like I said, I became Balm's ambassador. I was on the story one day. A girl called Daisy replied to the story, like, and I just spoke to her briefly, not really that much. And she was like, she named the exact road I was on. And I was like, okay, weird. I was like, I don't know if I want to say yes or no, because this is a bit freaky that you know where I am right now. But then we ended up striking off conversation, and then me and her just really connected over like how our eczema had been impacting us. And this was like peak like 2020, like near, it was end of 2020, so it's probably like November 2020, after all the lockdowns. My skin was awful. My eczema on my hands was the worst it's ever been in my life, like, and I just was really struggling with mental health and just coping with it. So just talking to someone who understood, like, you know, the way in which these conditions can affect you more than just the visual level, I was just like instantly like felt like I wasn't alone, and so I was felt heard. And just, yeah, we decided very quickly after that kind of conversation and how we felt just talking to each other from our experiences, that we needed to do something, and that there wasn't anyone really talking about the way in which it can make you feel. There was a lot of like medical advice out there, and you could end up on Google for hours, but there was no one really sitting there being like, this is, you know, can I swear on here?
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, the only way I can explain it is this condition is shit. Like, and one thing that can make you feel better is talking to people. So yeah, we were like, we should make a place where people can come together, make a friend, and, you know, have like a kind of pen pal, and maybe that can even turn into a friendship in person. So that kind of was the basis and the background of Itch and Bitch. But the whole, for those who don't know, Itch and Bitch started as a podcast, and it's kind of blossomed into this beautiful, like, positive community of people who are all connecting through the mutual understanding of the way in which your skin can make you feel. And I think, like, it's just kind of the whole root of Itch and Bitch is starting those conversations and just trying to normalize, like I say, I always say it, normalize normal skin, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of research out there I've read up on, and people might be quite shocked to hear that more people have a skin condition than don't. So the fact is that we are actually the majority. So the fact that we're made to feel that we should hide and that we're like different, and I can't even explain it. It rises a fire inside me when you really do look at it. It's just like, you didn't choose to have this skin condition, so why should you hide it? And, you know, it's all about like what you can and can't control is what I like to go back to as well. So just like, I can't control what's happening to me, but I can control how I react to it. And I think that's what kind of the whole thing was, that whilst you can have really bad skin and sometimes you can't do anything to help that, what you can do is reach out for help, and you kind of feel that kind of sinking feeling. That was a very long waffly explanation, but I hope there's everything in there.
No, it's really helpful to give that overview.
Yeah.
I actually didn't really know about your alopecia. I always just think about you with the eczema, particularly the hand eczema. You know, that's kind of what I associate you with. Do you know what triggered your alopecia in the first place?
So it was like 2017, and because I was a uni student, they always just say, oh, it's stress. And they'd done a few blood tests and stuff, and it came up with like an elevated level of monocytes, which means there's stress and inflammation in the body. But they can never really truly say, and they always, and that's a really frustrating point of alopecia, is they say, whilst we can't say what caused it, this thing might help it. And they never gave me a like, this will help. It was like, it might. And I had heard that my whole life, even with eczema. So I never really knew, but it was that repetition of hearing that same thing from the doctor, where they say, whilst we don't know what might caused it, this may help. And there was never like, this will help. So
No.
but for me, it probably was just a mix of like university deadlines. I don't know, like the university lifestyle, not much sleep, you know, and early mornings.
Poor diet.
Your poor diet. Yeah, so I was eating a lot of bad sausage, I'm not gonna lie, because I was in Scotland. Everything was deep fried when I was like on a night out and get the chips, you know. So it's just a combination, I think, and also the weather, I think, as well. Like, so much colder up north, honestly, and my body can't. Yeah.
It's definitely a time of your life where you've quite likely got a lot of inflammation going on during those years. So, from, as you say, from all those different angles. But eczema is what you mainly tend to talk about now, isn't it? I think what has always sort of made me so appreciative of what you do is having a teenage daughter and watching her now, and you know what she's kind of exposed to on social media, and then seeing you just championing that, like we do often say, normalizing normal skin. Having watched her eczema journey, my own journey with rosacea back in the 90s when everyone was just completely unaware of, I mean, didn't even really have social media then. And the embarrassment that I used to feel when my cheeks would flare and I'd get that bright redness. And so to see you just championing it and normalizing it, and like you're saying, bringing a community together where you can feel, we don't have to feel ashamed or embarrassed. I mean, I used to put like this like green tint on my cheeks, so I literally, like, people used to wonder if I was really ill. They used to say, oh, what's wrong with you, what's happened to you? But I was so, like, you know, as a sort of teenager, I was so keen to not have the red cheeks that I'd rather have this green thick, like almost like Elizabeth I, you know, that real white face. And then more people would comment on on my rosacea, the more embarrassed I would get, the more red my cheeks would get, and then I could feel them getting hot and I'd feel more conscious, and it was like this cycle. So I mean, one of the things that would be really good, I think, is for you to share, like, how do you help your own feelings of mental well-being and your self-confidence, your inner, that kind of inner self during a flare, when you've got those times where you can't control what's happening externally?
Yeah, so I think my approach to my skin has changed dramatically over the last few years. So, and I actually think like everything kind of stems back to the alopecia making me make that drastic change because of it. And everything I do and the way I approach it comes back from, I ended up going to therapy in the end because my eczema, so basically I was 20, my hair was falling out, my skin was awful, and I was sitting there going, I'm going to be bold and flaky by like, I'm going to, you know, all I could think was the worst place. My mind would always go to that worst place. And I actually ended up going to therapy and doing like cognitive behavioral therapy, and it kind of taught me these techniques which I now have carried through into my adult life and really leaned on a lot. So for me, I try and get my brain back into a more positive headspace. So when you're in that place where you're like, you're feeling that total loss of control, like you're suddenly like, say it's like a contact allergy reaction, you're suddenly burning hot red, it's going everywhere, and you're just like, oh my god, like, what, you start to feel your heart rate's going like that, and you're like, oh, what can I do, what can I do? But the reality is you can't do anything to help that reaction. What you can do is maybe a few little things, like, you know, have a shower, try get the allergen off you and stuff. But at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is have your brain as calm as possible, so that when that flare does catch you off guard, you're ready to actually take it on. So like, I always talk about like your cup, and like if your cup's overflowing already and then the flare hits, you're just going to overflow and you're just going to go into that kind of scratch itch cycle, they call. So for me, my best tips are like, treat a bad flare like a bad mental health day. So you know what, you're going to buy your favorite snacks, even if people are telling you online, don't eat the chocolate, it's going to make the skin worse. Buy the chocolate, buy whatever you think is your favorite snack, because you've got to get yourself back into that kind of place where you can try to recenter yourself into like a calmer place. So I buy my favorite snacks. I say to myself, if it's really bad and I don't want to go into the office, lucky for me, I've got a hybrid job. So I'll say to myself, okay, although I was meant to be in the office today, I'm going to work from home, because then I can be constantly applying my emollients. I can choose to have that camera on or off on the meeting if I do feel that bad. And just taking those steps to kind of prioritize your mental health over your physical health can then, after you've got through to a bit calmer place, help you actually care for your skin in the long term as well. And I've also written some notes. If you see me looking down, I just want to look to see. But also another thing that I always talk about is, sometimes when those flares hits and you are spinning out, you can start to blame yourself. You start thinking, what did I eat? What did I do? And you just literally find yourself trying to, it's like your mind's going to blame you. Just try and again, not remind yourself you're not to blame for your flares. You can't control them. And it's all like, that's why it's so hard to deal with eczema, especially. So if you're looking at me right now, you're like, what eczema? Like 2 weeks ago, I was having the worst eczema of my, like, I've had in years. My whole face was inflamed, my lips were swelling. And I did find myself falling back into bad habits where I was like spinning out, and I literally had to just take a day offline and be like, okay, oof. And then I decided to just stay at home and try and realign my brain. But then at the end of that day, when I was at home, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do the one thing I don't want to do. And I kind of just put myself out there, went for a 7 mile walk with my boyfriend, and it helped me just think, and just being outside and seeing that no one stared at me just kind of helped me as well. So I think there's so many different things, but at the end of the day, just reminding yourself that you're not to blame, and just controlling what you can control. So you can't control the eczema or the flare, whatever you're going through, but what you can control is how you react to it. So always prioritizing those kind of mental health, and then so primarily like mental health, secondary physical health. So what can I do in the short term to help me feel better, then approach the kind of skincare elements.
It's
And
so
yeah,
interesting, because it's so the opposite of what you often do. You're like, fix the flare, fix the flare, fix the
yeah,
problem, and that's what you jump to doing. But it's almost like you're flipping that on reverse, putting your oxygen mask on so that you've got that sorted before, and then you're not able to deal with the flare, as you say, in a calmer way, rather than letting it overtake you and take you down with it.
yeah. So like, honestly, yeah, because if you then try and do too much too soon, when that flare hits, you're just there like, you end up spinning out worse, and you end up in a worse place than you would. And I feel like if I prioritize my mental health first, I then can get over the flare quicker, because like, not physically, but like, you can just learn to deal with it more easily. Like I'm saying with the cup analogy, like your cup's now not overflowing, so I'm able to do my skincare routine. Instead of looking at my skincare routine as being like, oh my god, I can't be bothered, you're like, okay, I'm ready. And then you view it more like a self-care routine rather than something that you just have to do and just a chore. It feels like something that's actually helping you rather than something that's just annoying. And yeah, it just makes everything a little bit more easier when you do prioritize your mental health first. I also
Makes total
think
sense.
like, what were you gonna say, sorry?
I just think it makes total sense when you say it like that. It's so often with these things, isn't it? It's like, obviously, but it's
I
just
think
great
it's
to hear.
a big mindset thing as well. So if you are really struggling, one of the first steps I'll do is like, if my eczema's all over my face, like it was like 2 weeks ago, I'll then be like, oh, I'll look down, I'll be like, at least it's not in my hands. So I can still go and open the fridge, go open the bottles, I can do everything. And it's just that small little look for that small positive. So like, yes, it's here, but at least it's not here. And even if it's like the smallest, the most silliest, stupid little place, it just kind of helps you get into that more positive like mindset as well. So like those little things. But I do also think there is a certain point where like you're doing everything you can, and maybe this flare's been going on. So I'm talking about allergy flare in this situation, but if it's like a flare that's been going on for months, so like when I had my really bad hand eczema, I had that for like minimum 6 months straight. So obviously it's a lot harder to say, hey, prioritize your mental health when it's going on for such a long time. So when you're in those kind of flares, that's like a 6 month long flare and nothing's kind of edging it, none of the creams, nothing you're using is helping. At that point, I think, and if you do notice that it's starting to affect your life in general and your quality of life, that's when you need to say to yourself, do I need to go a little bit step further? Do I need to go and speak to someone? And I think that people tend to like not realize the value and how much talking to people can really help you heal. And sometimes the stress flare can be the main reason of your trigger. So by like offsetting the stress and maybe having somewhere to like offload it to, or somewhere, like some people have their techniques. So like some people like to meditate, some people like to exercise, other people like to go on walks, and yeah, I love walks. So I think like there's also the point in which you say, okay, I'm going to ask for help, and either that could be through your doctor and getting referred, or there's so many different mental health services now that can help and provide also free peer-to-peer advice as well. I'll drop one in here right now, but
Oh
Changing
yes, please.
Faces has a they have a free
Oh yeah,
peer-to-peer. I love it. I
yeah, they're
always
amazing.
recommend it to people. The wait time's only 2 weeks, which if you're really peak and feeling like rubbish, it sounds like a lot of time, but when you go through NHS, it's 6 months, so, or even longer. So 2 week waiting list isn't that long, but they do a free peer-to-peer mental health service, and it's all focusing on about visual differences as well. So you're talking to people who understand how something so visual can make you feel, and it just, honestly, you just feel like you're talking to someone who truly gets it. And that's all I can say at the end of the day. It's like honestly the best. But yeah, I feel like I am waffling again. We're just trying to think.
No,
So
that actually leads me on to the other subject, which I really wanted to get your thoughts on, is exactly that. Like you were saying, you know, you're speaking to people that get it and understand it. There's a lot of people, friends, family, colleagues, you know, even when you first meet people who maybe don't get it, they haven't had to go through that same journey as you. And what I've picked up a lot of, you know, just from sort of looking and listening to people, is there's a lot of like unhelpful, helpful comments that people can make. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of them myself, and I've watched, you know, like kids sort of be on the receiving end of more just sort of quick, you know, unhelpful questions. But it seems like there's some, again, once it's spelled out to you, there's some quite obvious do's and don'ts. There's things people say that are really triggering, like, oh, you know, you're so brave going out with your skin with a flare, which is like so offensive to imply someone's brave for basically being themselves. But there's lots of things that I think are well-meaning,
yes,
but they can be quite triggering. And I almost feel like, I think what would be really helpful is for us to sort of share a bit of a guidebook on the do's and don'ts for friends and family, because they're kind of navigating their way through it. They're sort of, you know, oh, should I say this, should I not? I know, like, stop scratching is another massively unhelpful thing that family tend to say. Yeah. And the thing is, the worst is, I heard myself saying that to my kids so many times: stop scratching, stop scratching, because I just wasn't aware, and I thought I was being helpful, like reminding them not to scratch. But now I'm so much more aware. I just look back and think, oh, you know, that's just, why did I do that? So yeah, what can you share the main do's and don'ts, and just give some advice for people how to be supportive?
So I feel like one of the main things is that a lot of people try and fix you or try and find a solution for you, but the reality is, like, you've tried everything before you've even said anything to them. So I think a lot of the time if you're trying to talk to someone who necessarily maybe doesn't have a skin condition, just listening to them, like allowing the person to let out what they're feeling without kind of input, or just like let them vent kind of thing, and just be there as a support and a listening ear. Don't go in there with the mindset of like, how can I fix you? Because telling me to go and get coconut oil or whatever is, I know, I've tried it. You don't need to give me the advice. Or even like, I think the worst thing about like eczema in particular is that it's so personalized, person to person. So what worked for I always say this, what worked for your aunt's not necessarily going to work for me. So it's not actually that helpful. I know that at the end of the day, you have to remind, also as the person with the skin condition, you need to remind yourself they're only trying to help you. So it can be really frustrating to hear the same thing again and again. But yeah, I just think maybe setting boundaries with your friends as well as the person with the skin condition, just be like, saying to them like, I'm really struggling with my skin at the moment, like, can you please not mention it? Because a lot of the time people will even say, oh my god, your skin's looking so good today. And it's just like the fact, it kind of reminds you that you're on a good skin day. It's just like, it reminds you that they've been looking and they've been noticing, and then that kind of gets inside your head, and then that's when anxiety starts to like, ooh. And then your anxiety's there, like, before you go out the house, you've probably changed 50 times when you've got a flare on, and you've finally like got yourself like reared up enough to go out and maybe go to that event, go to that party, and then you arrive and someone goes, oh, your skin's looking better, it's not as red. So then it's instantly told you that they were noticing your skin and that they know that it's a little bit red still, and it's just like, oh. So just not, I would say, just don't mention the skin. Ask them how they're feeling rather than ask, because a lot of people go like, oh, how's your skin doing? Or talk about the skin, they'll use the word skin. Instead of that, prioritize like thinking about like their mental. Ask them, how are you feeling, rather than how is your skin doing? Like, and I think that's a big thing. So it just helps me a lot when people ask me how I'm feeling rather than how my skin is. I don't know if that's the same for you, but like, or like, do you get that? Like, I don't know.
No, I do. And again, it's really obvious when you say it, because I think it's that difficult one, isn't it? When you're trying to be supportive to someone and you don't really have the rule book or the guidebook, and you think, oh well, if I don't mention their skin, then they'll think I'm not being supportive, and I'm not like considering the fact that they've got a skin condition. But as you say, by mentioning it, you know you've got a skin condition. You don't need reminding about it. You know where you are on your, you know, on your flares, and whether you're, as you say, whether your skin's more red or less red. You don't need people mentioning your skin to you.
I think that kind of leads nicely into like unsolicited advice as well. So what I was saying earlier about people trying to find a fix, they'll constantly be like, have you tried this, have you tried that? I think that's the most unuseful and most annoying thing that people do. And it's just like, come on, like, yeah, I've tried everything, like, this is since birth, it's not going to go away. And it kind of puts that mindset of like, people think that creams and products will cure you when there is no cure for eczema. And that's a really frustrating point, that people are like, you know, they're trying to fix a stress flare with a cream. Like, yeah, it may give you a bit of hydration and, you know, make your skin feel better, but it's not going to cure you because there is no cure. And I think it kind of leads into that big mindset of like, people thinking products are going to cure them, when in fact all we want is to be comforted and just feel a little bit better and easier to go about our day. So when people try and constantly recommend you endless products, it's a bit overwhelming, and it's just like it can leave you spinning out into that spiral again where you're like googling and you're like you've ended up in the middle of I don't know, dark side of YouTube and you're watching videos for hours. Yeah, and I just think the best thing I could say is just be there as a support to listen rather than as someone trying to fix. And that's one of the biggest things I always come back to. I'm trying to think, like, I'm reading my little notes that I wrote earlier in case, but yeah.
I mean, as human beings, we always want to try and fix and help. It's kind of ingrained in us, isn't it? And it's knowing what is helpful, what isn't helpful. Exactly. I think I don't know if you've seen. I think Ruth Holroyd. She's done quite a good list one time on one of her blogs about, like, you know, here's what helps, here's what doesn't. And I remember one of her comments was like, compliment people on something that isn't their skin, like say how nice their scarf is, or compliment them on something else but not necessarily their skin, which ties in with what you were saying, that even when people are trying to say, well, your skin's looking good, it's still going to take you to that place where you're having to think about your skin.
Exactly. It's just like trying to make them feel normal for a while without, like, because we can feel really like if you're in a group of people who don't have a skin condition, you can feel really isolated and you feel like people don't understand you. Oh, my Wi-Fi went a bit gropey then, didn't it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's going on off.
Going a bit pixelated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what I was saying is just like it can make you feel like you're not normal, and that's what it is when people are like bringing up those little things. So like if you're in a group of friends that don't have skin conditions, don't necessarily understand it, just like, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, just like making them feel like they're not the person in the friendship group with the skin condition, just another addition to the group, you know? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm more than my skin condition.
Exactly.
So
like
that kind of leads me on to the final thing I wanted to talk to you about, really, which is what can the skincare industry do to normalize normal skin? Because we're very aware that for us, you know, a lot of when we started because of eczema, like we understand it, we get it. It's psoriasis as well, as skin conditions. So, but there's a lot that I see, and I feel like we're still really behind, if I'm honest, right? Really behind in what we're portraying as normal and perfect. And I think there's some big changes that need to happen. I think there's a change in the whole narrative that needs to happen in terms of just normalizing eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, all the other skin conditions, acne. I think there seems to be some progression for acne, but I feel like if you've got a dry, itchy skin condition, you're still kind of a bit left in the dark. Like, what can we do as a community ourselves to support you guys better? Because I don't think we're doing a very good job at the moment.
Currently, I just feel like the UK skin market, or in general that I see, is still fixated on this reality of like before and afters, and
Yes.
too often they prioritize a before and after rather than saying, hey, they'll in their marketing strategies are like, this is what they look like before, this is what they look like afterwards, and then that to someone as a skin condition, you're sitting there thinking, skin conditions don't work like that. They're going to go up and down, and you're going to have, like, look at me right now, my skin looks great, but like 2 weeks ago it was awful. So it's just like, as someone with a skin condition, you know that that's not the reality of eczema or the reality of like having an inflammatory condition. You know it's going to go up and down. It's not a before and after, and it's something I get so annoyed about. Like, I wrote a whole post on it once and it went viral, and I was just like, ah. But on that post I was literally saying, like, dear skincare brands, like, eczema isn't a before and after. I'd prefer you to target me with like, this is going to ease your suffering, make you feel a bit more comfortable, and just having the focus on like realizing that everyone's skin is different. So that before and after again isn't reality, because like I said, information comes and goes, and then also everyone has different triggers. So that cream may work amazingly for someone but it won't work for the other person. So I feel like that focus on before and after kind of sends that marketing messages of a cure based thing again, when, like I said, eczema isn't a curable condition. It's honestly a lot of the time a lifelong chronic condition. Like me, I've had mine since birth, and it'll go up and down. So my main annoyance with the kind of way that the UK skincare market, or maybe even more than just the UK, is that kind of focus on the before and after. And it also kind of, again, like I said, you feel not, it's like an imperfect thing. You're like, it's like they're trying to make you into this filtered thing that's not reality. So
It's true.
Yeah.
Since we spoke, like, a while ago about this, and I actually had a meeting with our marketing team and with Hannah Solito and her team, and we discussed this exact topic that you raised, because we've done before and afters. Hannah's done before and afters. You know, it's something that we've kind of done to demonstrate that it does soothe the itch, etc. And it was so interesting seeing it from that other point of view. And we've all agreed, you know, that's not part of our strategy moving forward based on this
Yeah, I've
feedback.
seen a
Because
change actually, but
yeah,
it's you can do it before and after as long as you acknowledge in the caption that this is like, we're so happy to see that it's had this effect on this person's skin, but we do acknowledge the fact that it may not be the same for you. And just acknowledging it makes the difference. But a lot of the time in the captions, it's all about what the copy says as well. So there'll be these images that are so drastic before and after, and it gives you that effect that you want for your marketing. But necessarily thinking about the endpoint user of people with skin conditions is that we're sitting there thinking, that's not reality. But in the caption, if you even just say, we acknowledge the fact that this has helped this person, but it may not help you, but we just hope it provides you comfort. And we're just, you know, it's just that little, it's even a little one liner makes a massive difference when it comes to it as well. But yeah, I also think for my own personal journey, looking back over the way I was marketed to as a kid and throughout my years, because of that before and after, it made me feel worse about myself. So I was saying, I've used that product and I didn't get that result. Why am I different? And it again sends you on that spin out of being like, why me? And why didn't it work for me? And it kind of, you can end up throwing, I think it also preys on vulnerability a little bit as well, because a lot of people see that before and after and they'll be at that peak stress limit with their skin condition, and they'll be like chucking lots of money at something that won't necessarily work. So that's another thing that kind of upsets me a lot of the time as well. But I just think
it's so
that
interesting
moving
hearing that.
forward, if you show that you want to provide comfort and care and just ease their day and help them manage their skin a little bit better, it makes such a big difference. And it might also help the next generation stop focusing on this perfection, that instead they'll be learning to live with it more comfortably rather than learning how to hide and cover it and cure it, because that's not the reality. That was a great passion speech, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah,
No, it's so useful, and this is why I'm loving the fact that we're having this interaction with you and your community now, so we can really learn like what we're doing that's not helping, what can we do, how can we change, and then hopefully we can inspire other brands as well to start changing their narrative.
do you think there is a bit of a shift at the moment though? So like you were saying about acne, they've had their body positivity kind of acne positivity movement, and we've seen like big brands picking up skin and not filtering it and showing the reality. And I really was inspired by that. So just seeing, I actually realized afterwards, I shouldn't feel so excited and happy to see real skin. It should have just been the normal all along. And I actually just kind of had a thought in on myself, and I was like, why am I getting so excited? I was like, yeah, I just speak to someone or like a brand one time, and they said to me that the reason they weren't showing eczema and like raw like red skin is because that like if they were to put it on like Facebook and stuff, it used to get taken down because the way that the algorithm worked as well, that they would view this eczema skin as being like self-harm because of the filter being so bad to not be able to pick up what it actually was. So that's why you'll see a lot of the time hidden content when some people share skin. It doesn't always happen. It seems to be getting better. So I guess at the end of the day, you can't always blame the brands as well, because they're trying to do the best they can do with what they're allowed to do online, you know. But we can all do a little bit in our campaigns and stuff to make people feel a bit better and, you know, ease it. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting when I heard that. I was like, that does explain it, but I wasn't sure if it's an excuse or not.
I think there's definitely an element of that, definitely, but I'm not sure that the majority of brands are finding that out through experience yet.
Well, what I was saying with the shift is that so the acne's kind of had that movement where they've started to use it, and there's a lot more girls now and people and guys feeling a lot better about their skin, and then it kind of starts the conversation as well. So they've seen that campaign, they're like, oh my god, wow, and you have that amazing moment of wow, they look like me, and then it kind of inspires a lot of people to want to then share their own stories and journeys, and then I call it like a tree or a domino. It like branches out, and from that, you know, starting the big campaigns, maybe even put it on a front cover of a magazine, someone's going to see it, someone's going to feel better, they're going to tell someone else, and it kind of encourages them to accept and feel more normal. And I think I never mentioned it earlier, but I think acceptance, it takes a long time to get there, but when you do get there, it makes everything a lot more easier. And instead of being really upset every time that flare hits, you're just like, okay, I've been here before, I'll be here again, and each time it does get a little bit easier. And that's kind of mindset that I'm at. But yeah, I'm such a waffler, aren't I?
No, not at all. No, I'm just listening to everything you're saying. I've just thought one more question. I know sort of if we can just squeeze in one more, which is we've got summer coming up. Like summer comes with quite a lot of its own challenges and benefits. You know, sun helps psoriasis, the heat and the sun cream tend to play havoc with eczema. So you've got all sorts of things going on. But in terms of the kind of mental health aspect as well, how do you how do you protect yourself when you are exposing flares, you know, wearing like skimpier clothes in public, etc.? If people are staring at your eczema, looking at your eczema, what do you do to not let that bother you, not let it get to you? Because I know that, again, for a lot of teenagers, that can be something that's quite stressful for them.
Yeah,
Having to
honestly,
expose their
I've been thinking
skin.
about posting about this again. I did a massive post last year about this, and I feel like during the colder months you have your protective barriers because it's cold. You wear your long sleeves, and or like because you know you can. But when it gets to summer, if you're, I remember a few summers ago, like probably like 2018 summer, I had really bad eczema up and down my arms and on my hands as well, and I was wearing long sleeves in a 29 or like, you know, 20+ degree heat, and I was sweating,
Wow.
I was uncomfortable, but I was getting red because I was so hot. But I did that because it made me feel comfortable, and I felt like I could only go out with the long sleeves on, and I was in such an anxious place that I wouldn't go out without having long sleeves and pulling them down, or like just that barrier to help me feel better. But to be honest, one day I just decided I'm gonna say a swear word again. I was like, fuck it, I'm going outside. I was like, it's so hot, I can't cope, and I'm really bad in heat anyway. So I was just like, I'm gonna wear the short sleeves, I'm gonna wear the shorts, I'm gonna show my skin. And I did it, and no one stared at me, no one said anything. And then I think it just kind of I told myself, okay, no one is noticing it. And then I think that's when I kind of realized, like, often the thing that you're most insecure about is the one thing that you notice the most is the one thing that other people would notice the least. And like, yeah, and it just really, that's what I thought at that moment. And then also the reason I forgot to say, the reason I did that and wore the short sleeves and stuff is because I was out and about with my long sleeves, and I wasn't really posting online about my skin at the time. I just saw a girl rocking a full flare in summer, and I was like, and I turned to my boyfriend, I was like, oh my God, look, she's got eczema, it's out.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of these like core memories of mine where I just felt like, got a little teary then, but like I just felt like, oh my God, why have I been hiding it? And I also thought, if she can do it, so can I. So then just seeing other people doing it kind of inspires you to want to do the same. And then the more you do it, the more easy it becomes, and the less you think about it, and it becomes kind of like habitual. You're not, so currently you might be habitually like covering your skin, but you just have to make the small little steps, and maybe every day your sleeves get a little shorter. You're going to start with full length, quarter length, and then you're suddenly at the short sleeves, and just gradual and little steps like that can make you feel a lot better. And rather than putting yourself straight out there into the open in the short sleeves and feeling like, oh my God, just doing little things. And also another thing that really helped me when I was going through like hair loss and had really big patches that were not, I couldn't hide unless I wore a hat or something, and then I also had the really bad skin at the same time, I started to wear like quotes. And it told me that they're not looking at my skin, they're not looking at my hair loss, they're looking at the quote. And for some reason that really helped me. And I'm not the type of person to wear quotes all over me, because I always thought, well, that's a bit funny. But the thing is, I thought they're not looking at what I'm worrying about, they're looking at the quote. And that mindset really helped as well. So if you are feeling particularly like anxious, maybe go out there, put on like, you know, your short sleeves, but have it bright, bold, say they're looking at the color, they're reading the picture. And I think that's also why I created Itch and Bitch merch, because it also helps you reclaim your power. And like, just like, so looking at like this, don't tell me to stop itching pillow, I've got that on t-shirts. And
Yes.
I think you're sending a message, and it helps you start the conversation. Or even if you don't feel comfortable to talk about it, you can be like, point at your little quote and be like, read it, bitch, it says it's got it. So that's another thing for me. And so that's one of my biggest tips, is just like wearing quotes for a while and stuff, and then eventually stop wearing the quotes, you start wearing just black shirts and short sleeves. Yeah, and I think that also helps you to stop being so negative and like about yourself. It kind of helps you again. It's all, I keep going back to it, but realigning your thinking,
Yeah.
and like bringing yourself back into that more positive mindset, and it helps. Everything gets easier when you're not as stressed about it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and with
And no one
time,
should be
yeah,
feeling that they should be covering
yeah,
up. I mean, it's
exactly.
just
Oh,
inherently there's so much wrong about
yeah,
that. That
yeah, I'll say
whole.
one more thing on that actually. So I think this is another thing I say to people: ask yourself, did you ask for eczema? And like, so things like that. Did I ask for eczema? No. Can I control it? No, not always. Maybe, you know, if you know that you've done something, but again, you're not to blame for it. And having fun is the best thing you can do. And just like, I think just reminding yourself that you didn't ask for this, so why should you be making the choice to cover it? Like,
Mm.
it just blows my mind that we all have got into this place where we're like feeling like you have to hide it. And like looking back on my childhood, and I talked about this in some of the early podcasts about like, if you were born in like the late 90s, then you were at school in the early 2000s. There was this phase where girls would go to the bathroom, we'd all have our dream at moves, and we'd all be sharing the pot, which gives me fear from all the bacteria anyway. But like, I'd be covering my eczema with dream at moves, and it would be clumping on it. And like, maybe we wouldn't have those moments looking back if we'd just seen like a bit of advertisement showing real skin. Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for giving up your time on a bank holiday to chat to us
Honestly,
about it as well.
it's a lovely chat. Felt very natural flowed.
Yeah, so I can chat to you for hours.
I know, I
Always,
really
so.
like you. You're great.
Brilliant. Thank you, and thanks to everyone who joined as well. Like, do feel free to leave any comments, etc. I haven't seen any specific questions come in, so
if does anyone have a question, I guess I'm just going to scroll and see if there's anything. There's a lot of just love hearts.
yeah, lots of hearts and waves.
Oh, hi friends, I can see. Hi Charlie.
Mm.
I'm just checking. Okay, does anyone have any questions? If not, we might hop off this. Should we give them 2 minutes?
Go and enjoy the sun, what there is of it.
Oh, there's a little question tab, unless you just put it on the chat. But anyways, it was lovely to speak to you today, and also I guess I could have a little chat about Westlab quickly. I have actually been using Westlab's products since I think 2 years now. And another thing that I always advise people is that like when you're looking at your skin and you're trying to find a bit more of a natural route, looking at what covers your body the most. So if you think about like hair washing and your wash routine, a lot of people forget about that. And when I start to think about my wash routine, my eczema got less full body and more localized, so I have the little patches and stuff. And one of the products that I've been using like every day for like 2 years is like the Westlab's sea salts body wash. So I think it's the Dead Sea wash, and now I've just started using the Himalayan wash as well. And I think just using something a little bit more natural, and it just really helps. And I could use it at any point. My skin could be red raw and it doesn't burn, and a lot of people think, oh, salt, that's going to burn. But it doesn't. And that's the one thing people ask me all the time about the when you're going for like a salt bath, is it going to burn? I'm like, no, it's actually like completely different to the sea salt water that you're thinking about, and it's just a bit more natural. And it not like natural, it's just like it like reduces inflammation, it calms your skin, it leaves it more hydrated rather than people thinking drying it out. So that's all I'll say about Westlabs as well.
Oh, thank
I do think
you.
Oh, and someone's commented saying, can I just say Westlabs is a miracle, it has really helped my skin, especially my feet.
Yeah,
And then someone else just said, I just want to say the sea salt baths helped me so much. Yeah, they honestly helped me so much as well. I actually, if you follow me, you'll know that my eczema for the last few years has been the worst on my hands. And I actually used to see these little hand baths. And because they say to use for like 20 minutes, I do a 20-minute hand bath, and I'd be watching like Brooklyn Nine-Nine episodes, which are 20 minutes long. But I just like this hand bath. I don't have to get in a full bath because I live in a flat now, and I really want a bathtub, but you can still do
That's so funny you say that, because my son, who I do, poor him, you talk about stinging, I mean, he's experienced, like, he often is, he's often the guinea pig for, in fact, shower gel was developed, you know, testing on him, and recent work we've been doing as well. So he's had every sort of strength of sea salt, and believe me, when you get it to a certain strength, it can sting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I will put a Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode on for him in the bath, because exactly that. It's so funny that you're watching the same thing. Exactly, he loves it, and it's 20 minutes, and I know that'll keep him in the bath for 20 minutes while he has his sea bath. So
that's really funny.
Real. Oh,
anyway, it was
so
lovely speaking to you. I can see some positive
joining.
comments about your Westlab as well. But yeah, it was a really nice chat today, and I hope people listening to this like walk away maybe feeling a little bit better and just like learning something. And just I think like I'll just say my final point is this, like I said, sometimes prioritizing your mental health over your physical health is the best way you can approach your eczema and manage it. Like just taking the time out to prioritize little things like self-care and like can really help you deal with the actual physical effects of a flare. So yeah,
I think that's such good advice. Completely, as I say, completely spins on its head what people so often do.
No.
So yeah, invaluable. Thank you, Katie.